Hello, good afternoon. If you're just joining us, we're going to wait another minute or so as we wait for everyone to get through the waiting room, but thanks for being here. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon. My name is Grace Sullivan Zirkle. I serve as Associate Dean of Students and Director of New Student and Family Programs, which just means it's my job to help orient all of you and help you transition to the university. We are so excited that you are joining us again today for another summer transition series. If this happens to be your first STS webinar of the summer, welcome. Thanks for being here. This is really just an opportunity to bring experts on a certain topic straight to you so you can hear straight from them about critical resources and opportunities for new to Duke students. So today we're really excited to have our colleagues from Prehealth Advising. Before I kick it off and send it over to them, just a few housekeeping items. We are recording this webinar so that you can revisit it later, but also your peers who may not be able to join live later or today will be able to review the content. So at the conclusion of today, we'll go ahead and get this webinar transcribed and we'll have it online in about 48 hours, the same place where you registered for the webinar. But please know that we are recording the content. At the bottom of the screen, you should see a Q&A. That is where you can submit your questions. We would encourage you to wait until we get towards the end of the formal presentation because I know our amazing colleagues on here and they have a very thorough presentation and I'm sure they're going to answer a lot of questions you have now. So if you wait towards the end of their presentation and then start to put your questions in the Q&A, that'll make sure that we can absorb their information first. All right. Well, with that, I am going to hand things over to my colleague, Dean Alyssa Pers, to get us started for today.
All right. Thanks so much for having us. I am Alyssa Pers. I direct the Office of Health Professions Advising and serve as an academic dean in Trinity College. I'm joined by the Associate Director of Health Professions Advising, Ms. Brittany Moorhack, and you'll hear more from her in just a bit. Our focus today is to offer pre-health students some guidance for registration. Our agenda will cover a little bit about pre-health advising at Duke. We'll spend quite a bit of time helping you focus on planning courses for fall 2025 through the pre-health lens. We also really want to underscore while you're met with a lot of requirements, either from Duke curricula or pre-health professional school requirements, we want to make sure that you're focusing on your choices as well. We'll offer a few tips for success, some sample schedules so that you feel like what you're doing is well within the range of normal, and then leave lots of time for your questions at the end. So Ms. Moorhack and I are two of a team of 6 folks who support pre-health students at Duke. We have Ms. Cheryl Westray as our assistant, our staff assistant, and then 3 additional advisors. You'll see at the end, we'll tell you about our orientation events where you'll get to meet the whole team, meet with your advisor, and start building that relationship one-on-one.
All right, I'm so excited to welcome you to Duke. As Dean Kerr said, I'm Brittany Moorhack, the Associate Director. I'm thrilled to anchor our conversation today in what our mission is at HPA. As Dean Kerr alluded to, there are a lot of choices and along the lines that you're going to make. And our mission in HPA is really to help you make empowered and informed choices. You're rarely going to hear one of us tell you what to do. Instead, we're going to give you the different pieces of information so that each of you can build an authentic pathway to your healthcare profession. So how do we do that and who exactly do we support? My slides are stuck. There we go. So the Office of Health Professions Advising works with a lot of different students. We have a lot of students who are pursuing medicine, whether that's a physician or a physician assistant, but also widely support students who are looking at careers as a dentist or a vet, physical therapist, pharmacy, optometry, nursing, genetic counseling, occupational therapy, and more as they continue to grow in the healthcare field. We do like to point out at this point that we have 3 pathways: dentistry, veterinarian medicine, and physical therapy, that have specific student organizations that are also paired with a wonderful advisor who works in those spaces. And so while you have the full support of our office, you also have these additional advisors on these pathways to help you think about these individual careers that are a little bit different than some of the others. So how to stay connected with us. We want you to be connected with us early. We're so glad you're here now so that we can get started. I'm going to pause on this slide for just a second, because if you are not yet registered with our office, I want all of you to do that today before we end our presentation. We'll have a couple of more slides that have this QR code, but the QR code on the left side is going to get you registered with our office. It allows us to learn a little bit more about which pathways you're interested in, and we'll make sure that you're on our listserv so that while we're sending out information about events and opportunities to connect with us, tips for transitioning to Duke from HPA, that this is where we're getting that information from. We also have a very robust website. On the right-hand side, you'll see that that address is prehealth.duke.edu. And there are different phases that you can look at. Really encourage students who are getting started to look at places like Explore and Prepare. Take a look at what's there. Our hope is that when you have a question, there's at least a starting point of an answer on our website, but there is a lot of detail, so take your time, look as you have time and interest.
Okay, so I want to talk in very broad terms about preparation for a health career. No matter what career you're aiming for, there's a combination of things that you'll want to do during your undergraduate years, mainly courses and experiences. The combination of these things together are going to help you develop pre-professional competencies. I don't know that many of the professions have articulated them as well as medicine. But I think if you look at these competencies, which we will introduce to you in our programming this fall, you'll start to see how they're relevant broadly to preparing for health professions. Today, we're really going to focus on the courses. And as you start to dive into this formula of courses plus experiences equals competencies, you will probably focus. Could you advance one, Brittany? You will probably focus on the requirements. While that's really helpful, many of the course requirements are going to serve as prerequisites for the advanced courses in professional schools. If you are heading into a profession like medicine or dentistry, where there's a standardized test that covers content from those courses, then those courses are often recommended to help you prepare for those tests. But today, we also want to highlight that in addition to meeting requirements, whether they are for the curriculum you're pursuing at Duke or for the profession, that you have a lot of choice. And I think it's really easy to lose sight of that choice. So one of the things we want to do today is to really highlight where you have choices. And the reason for this is you're completing a degree where you only have 34 credits to complete to get there. 4 years, it may not feel like it right now because it probably feels like everything is going slow to get started, but the 4 years are going to fly by fast. And if you don't treasure where you have choices, you may miss the opportunity to explore and discover a really terrific major. That's a great complement to the kind of research you want to do or who you want to be professionally. If you just treat this whole process of preparing like a checklist, you're going to wind up feeling a little unsettled and maybe even shortchanged about your undergraduate experience. You have picked a fabulous place by choosing to come to Duke. We have a buffet of wonderful opportunities and experiences. But you've got to be really thoughtful and intentional. A lot of students will try to do too much and then have to pare back, or will really stick to what they see other people doing or what other people tell them to do. And this is really the time to start listening to that voice inside of you about what seems most interesting to you. Don't be afraid you're going to make a mistake, because if you do something and you don't like it, that's data, and that will really help direct you in the right direction. So, my next slide is going to serve to illustrate this a little bit. So if you'll go ahead and advance, when you first look at this picture, you may see the bat-like devils or the white angels. But the reason why I use this Escher image is because you can't have the bats without the angels, or the angels without the bats. They're interdependent on each other. So to have a really robust and high quality undergraduate experience, you've got to have the requirements and the choices, and you've got to give them equal attention. And in fact, you may need to focus a little more on the choices than the requirements, but I think you're probably tempted to focus on the requirements rather than the choices. So just lean into that. If that idea is uncomfortable, I want you to focus on the places where you have some choice to make, and to really think about what you could do with them. So if we could have the next slide, please. And part of why I feel really confident about saying all of this is that in your first semester, everything you take will count towards something. So we're going to use these symbols, the green head with the light bulb for requirements in Trinity College, the blue stethoscope for things that are meeting pre-health requirements, and the yellow head with gears for Pratt requirements, and try to illustrate, as we share sample schedules, the ways in which you don't need to be afraid of wasting any slots or schedules, or opportunities class-wise, because you'll be meeting requirements no matter what you do. Could I have the next slide, please? All right, so we'll start with students in Trinity, and there's a couple flavors of schedule. For those of you that have been assigned to the Writing 120 group in the fall, you will have a schedule that might look like a Constellation course, Writing 120. Our recommendation for most of you is going to be to take a chemistry class. We've listed the 4 possible places where you can take an introductory chemistry class. You don't just pick the number that looks the best to you here. You use the placement guidelines on the chemistry department website, and I'll talk a little bit about how to find that if you haven't found that already. And what you don't want to do is underplace yourself and be bored by doing things that you've done before. And you also don't want to overplace yourself and stretch yourself so much that, oh, I can cut out of a couple classes by doing organic early, because you will struggle in that class if you don't have the foundational chemistry knowledge. So the chemistry placement guidelines are all based on data and what chemistry knows about what they're offering. And so follow their advice. If you have questions, you feel like you're on the bubble between things, contact the DUS in chemistry to resolve that. And also there's a diagnostic quiz on their website. There's lots of ways to kind of refine that enrollment for yourself as well. And then the 4th class, I'm going to share with you a menu of options that will give you some ideas about how to choose that 4th course. On the other hand, if you need Writing 120 in spring, you won't be taking it this fall. So that may mean you're taking a Constellation course or are in Focus, since everybody in Focus is going to take Writing in the spring. If you are in the Constellations and not taking Writing 120, then you'll have another choice to make. Obviously, if you're in Focus, that'll take your second class there. Just like the other schedule, you'll find placement in chemistry. And then on the next slide, I'll talk about your menu for choices. Actually, we're going to talk about Pratt schedules. So could you advance that for me? All right, so if you're in Pratt, you'll probably take a couple courses related to your engineering degree. We refer you over to your Pratt deans and advisors for what those might be. Just like students in Trinity, we recommend you start with a chemistry class. And then, because Pratt and Prehealth both prioritize math classes, then place into the most appropriate math class for you. Now, this slide, I think, will show my menus. So on the Trinity side, if you've got a choice, you might take a Calculus 1 class. If you're someone who's taking two focus classes in chemistry, I don't know that we'd recommend calculus as the other class, just because you don't have a whole lot of choice. By the same token, if you're in a constellation and writing 120, you may or may not take calculus. Obviously, if you have AP credit that places you out of calculus 1, then you may not need it for pre-health and need to look elsewhere. A lot of our quantitative majors may require more calculus and so on. Um, Calculus is just one of the possibilities of classes. Um, you could also look at starting a language requirement in Trinity. I've seen so many great stories of students who start their language early, can do research, civic engagement, study abroad in that language. Some pre-health students realize, oh my gosh, being able to understand cultures and communicate in another language is a really powerful tool when working with patients. So they'll minor in a language, they'll major in it. So it's one of those decisions that may feel like an onerous requirement early to you, but as you start to look at the landscape of the profession and the opportunities that this requirement creates for you, you may actually embrace it as a really exciting opportunity for yourself. One thing that we really like to promote for pre-health students is if your major does not map onto the pre-health requirements, you may want to explore a major class early on. There's so many things that we offer at Duke that you can major in that you haven't even had a chance to take in high school. So, getting that initial experience, exploring that, seeing what it's like, will really help you get the information you need about whether that's something you might want to study. And we can both tell countless stories of students who took something to try it out or as an elective and wound up majoring in it and doing research and having really rich experiences because they trusted their gut to go do some exploring. Because so many of the STEM classes tend to be large, many of the chem classes that we're recommending are hundreds of students. Looking for something that's medium or small is another way to kind of diversify your schedule. And then, of course, one of the things we really want you to encourage you to do is to consider topics that you've never had exposure to. We can make the case for probably almost any subject area, or I think I can say 100% of the subject areas can be relevant to a profession in the health. So you can't go wrong. On the Pratt side, because STEM is so baked into your curriculum and many of the pre-health requirements will map onto that, we really encourage you to start thinking early about what am I going to do for those social science and humanities electives? We recommend that you look at English and writing coded courses, psychology, medical sociology. These are things that are either common requirements at schools or tested on things like the MCAT. So fitting those in, because you only have 5 of them in your entire degree, can be really a wise choice to make sure that you're meeting those expectations that'll prepare you for medicine. Also consider small, medium courses and topics you've never been exposed to. Could I have the next slide, please? All right, so we've already talked a little bit about our website. I wanted to introduce you to some resources. If you go to prehealth.duke.edu, like we've mentioned, and now in that left-hand menu, I'm focusing on our handouts and resources page. So Brittany, if you would click once for me, the first resource on this page I'd recommend are the pre-health tips for fall classes. I haven't gone into a lot why I would recommend chemistry, in your first semester for most health professions. But this will really kind of walk you through many of the courses that you could choose, strategies for picking electives that goes into a lot more detail than I have. The links for placement is there, recommendations to contact DUSs as well for many different departments. And so this is, if you have not found this, resource, I would recommend you start here. If you'll click again, I want to back up and just remind everybody that the health professions, depending on the career you want to go into, do vary with requirements. So there are professions, for instance, I do our pre-nursing advising. Our pre-nursing students generally don't need chemistry. So this link that takes you to a document about course requirements by career type will take you to the umbrella or organization for educating yourself in various professions. They vary somewhat. Medical school's got a really great chart. Other things you've got to make an account like vet and osteopathic medicine in order to get to their resources. But this will really start to get you a list of how do the different health professions vary. Physical therapy, you'll take a little less chemistry, but you need some physics. Just trying to see how these professions vary will help you to get a better list of classes that you need to take so that you can prepare for yourself for profession. We sometimes frustrate students because sometimes you'll ask us what feels like a really straightforward question, and the first words out of our mouth are going to be, it depends on the school. So anytime you find a list that is not a list of requirements for a specific school, you've always got to treat that list like realistic fiction. So the next things I'm going to show you are two worksheets. They're labeled pre-health, but these are really pre-medical requirements. Vet and dentistry are pretty close, but we're working on writing more universal pre-health things. But everybody, whether we've got a pretty worksheet that shows you all the pre-med requirements, or you've got to start with looking at these career organizations, I want you looking at individual schools from the start. Start with your state schools, see how they differ from our lists, because that is the only way to know whether you're hitting it all. I don't want you to be a senior applying to your state school and discover they want 2 physiology classes, or they really want an ethics class from you. We want you to sort of be educating yourself about these things early. You'll start to see the patterns. You'll see where our lists are grounded in reality, but that I also want you to be out looking for the unique things. That way, if you're trying to find a course that will meet some curricular requirements, you can also be meeting a health profession school requirement as well. So these planning worksheets will kind of run you through the different classes. They're kind of ordered based on, so in Trinity, we're going to start with math and chemistry and then work our way through the other sciences to the social science and humanities. Whereas in Pratt, we're going to flip it around and focus on the social science humanities, since those electives are ones that you need to think about a little bit more because your curriculum matches so well into the pre-health stuff. So this will just kind of get you started. Please use the Q&A drop-ins that we'll talk about in a minute to get any specific questions that you need answered for making these first course selections. I think I'm handing it over to Miss Moorheck now.
All right, so we're going to look at some sample schedules now. So we're going to start with Trinity, and you're going to see some icons on the screen. The first is the hexagon, which hopefully looks really familiar for those of you who have done other transition series workshops. This is our new curricular sort of icon. So when you see this icon on these sheets, what you're looking at is something that is a liberal arts requirement for graduating from Trinity, where the stethoscope is going to indicate a pre-health requirement that is common for many pathways. So we're going to start on the left-hand side. If you were placed in Constellation, I looked at the real Constellation and pulled some classes that sounded really interesting, to be honest, to me, and thought about even the ones that feel maybe a little bit outside of pre-health could still have really big impacts, not only on your thought process and how you see healthcare, but just on you as a person, and still all fulfill pre-health requirements. So you see on this left-hand side, this Constellation has a Constellation course first. The second one is the Writing 120 and how that is connected to the Constellation. But Writing 120 is also a pre-health requirement for many pre-health health professions programs. So you're fulfilling both in that space. We've talked a lot about Chem. So this particular student is going to plan to enroll on Chem 101 DL. That includes the lab. This means the student has looked at their course placement with chemistry and has determined that Chem 101 is the best starting place for them. And then they've chosen Psych 101 for the major. So we're really clear on indicating here, this is somebody who thinks they might want to be a psych major. And while yes, this fulfills a pre-health pre-req, this isn't the reason necessarily this particular student is taking psych. So Psych 101 is a great choice, particularly if you think you might want to major in psych, but there are also lots of other choices that you could use in that fourth slot. On the right-hand side, you see a student who is enrolled in Focus. And so there are 2 Focus courses here that are from Real Focus sections, and that this student has looked at their Chem placement, and they will be in Chem 99D. So these courses are fulfilling, again, the liberal arts requirements for your Trinity education, and Chem 99D will be a pre-health prereq for this student. They've also placed themselves into Math 105 in this scenario. Again, looking at the placement from the math department and their educational experiences prior to coming to Duke, have decided that Math 105 is the best placement for them. This is also a pre-med prereq or pre-health prereq and is going to be a liberal arts requirement. So as you're going through all of these choices, how do you choose courses that help you be successful? You've probably heard us allude or very directly at this point say some of this. The first thing we think is like really diversify your class size. As Dean Pers mentioned earlier, some of these class lectures are going to be on the larger side that you know that you'll be taking, like Chem. So looking for classes that might have smaller, medium sizes so that you can explore your learning styles and develop relationships with faculty. Many, if not all, of the health professions programs are going to ask for recommendation letters. So being in different learning environments and learning to get to know your professors in these different learning environments will help you not only succeed academically this semester and beyond at Duke, but also down the line when we're thinking about people who can talk about who you are in the classroom. Hopefully we have a longer list of folks you think you could reach out and ask. Next, diversify topics. Now is the time for intellectual exploration. There are going to be courses you've never even thought of or heard of when you enter Duke. Take some of those. I like to share sometimes medical schools talk sometimes about shortening the path to practicing medicine. The one place they don't want to touch is the undergraduate education experience, because this is what they want you doing. They want you exploring and learning about new topics and new ways of thinking. So if something just sounds exciting, take it. We'll be okay. We'll still be on track. We do want you to think about limiting your labs. If you're in Trinity, probably no more than 2 classes. Everything else should be lab free. That will help you balance your workload a little bit differently, which sort of leads to our last point, which is diversify your workloads. Choose courses that have different workloads. Courses that have labs will inherently have more coursework and integrated into the experience. We really want you to be whole people, not just in your first semester, but your entire time at Duke. So we really want you to be thoughtful when you're choosing your classes so that it also leaves you time to have experiential and social experiences that are just as important in your development as a health professional in the future. So what does a Pratt fall schedule look like? The gears here are going to indicate this is what is a Pratt requirement. So Pratt does have a lot more early engineering courses. You're going to be taking Chem and Math for those reasons. So again, you're going to want to use the Chem placement and the Math placement if you're a Pratt student to choose which of those sequences you should be putting yourself into. So this particular student chose Chem 110 based on their experiences in Chem, and Math 111. These 2 are both also health professions prereqs, and so this student is getting a nice balance across Pratt requirements and movement in their health professions prereq. This picture hopefully looks familiar to many of you. This is on the AAC website about course placement. If you take nothing else from this webinar today, please take that you should be choosing the classes based on your educational experiences for Chem and Math and languages and other spaces. Follow the department advice. It is based in data. It will help you be successful. Pre-health feels very strongly that placing yourself in the right class is the best choice for a pre-health student. So what can you do before you arrive? We want to think about how we can help you make this transition as easy as possible. We want you to register for classes. So we are hoping that you are thinking about those things. I think being here today indicates you are, but also thinking about, where did all my little pictures go? Really just using our resources to choose the courses that make the most sense for you and your pathways. I want you to register with us. This is how we can communicate with all of you. And so making sure that you're connected with us. We know that you are a pre-health student. You are not committing to being a pre-health student forever. If you are even 1% pre-health, please sign up so that you get our communications. if you have questions or are curious, our website's such a great place to start. You can poke around, explore, see things. You're going to hear things like it depends, or that this is really school specific, or these are best paths. We're here in the long run to really help you make those choices. But getting a sense of what some of our general information is can be helpful for students, particularly if you have some thoughts about what might your time early at Duke look like. Oops, sorry. We also want you to spend some time reflecting on why you chose Duke. It can be really exciting to transition to Duke. It can also be a little overwhelming with all of the options. And you might start to hear that these are the best ways to do certain things. And we really feel like the students who graduate from Duke and go on to health professions careers that feel the most satisfied with their undergraduate time have stayed really true to themselves. So what made you choose this place? Was it research? Was it, I don't know what is going on with my eyesight. Sorry, everyone. Was it research? Was it Duke Engage? Was it going abroad? Was it a student organization that outside of everything else, you're really excited about joining? All of these things will help you build core competencies that Dean Pers was talking about earlier, which are really important in your long-term development. So remember who you are as you're transitioning here and who you might look to become, and make choices that reflect that. And lastly, we cannot stress this enough. You'll hear us talk a lot about this. Being a pre-health student is like running a marathon. We want you to pace yourself. We promise we will be here as we go through things. We really want you to focus on transitioning first to Duke, your fall classes, having a good support system, a good plan for how you're going to keep yourself healthy and balanced for the entire fall semester. We're going to go each step along the way to get to where we're going to go. Rushing almost never makes things happen better or easier as a pre-health student. So anything you can do to treat this like a marathon, you're going to feel better, not only in the short term, but definitely in the you have lots of options to continue to interact with Dean Pers and I and the rest of our amazing colleagues here in HPA. So we are going to have Zoom group advising every day starting tomorrow through the 29th. So the links are on our website, the prehealth.duke.edu/events. You can go find the links for that, and one of us will be present in those during those times to answer questions. As you'll see, we tried to vary times and dates so that hopefully one of these ranges works for you. That should get you set for registration. And then when you get here in what feels like rapidly coming faster and faster by the day, we're really excited to welcome you at our HPA 101 event, which will be August 22nd, which is exactly a month from now. We'll all be together in person. And so we will run 2 times of the same session. So you can either come to the 1 o'clock or the 3:30. You do not need to come to both. And then when you check into this event, you'll be able to get access to advisor drop-ins. So these are what we're thinking about and how we're going to help you make choices in the next couple of weeks into the early months. We are going to transition to questions in just a second, but again, I'm putting up the registration QR code so that if you have not registered with our office, you can do that. We really, before we sort of transition to questions, just want to remind you, you're all on your own paths. The best way to get to where you want to go is to build a really strong road, brick by brick, semester by semester, year by year, focused on our direction, not the destination. We hope that the experiences that you have at Duke, classes, mentors, research, Duke organization, studying abroad, we hope that refines your destination. But really, it's only when we're focused on the direction that we can pick up those interesting experiences and really figure out where each should be. So now I'm going to open it up for Q&A.
Wonderful. Thank you all. We have plenty of questions in the Q&A, the nitty gritty and the big picture. So I'm just going to start slinging them at you if that's okay. There's a few about fall class conflicts, including focus. So what about Pratt and focus and chem? If that doesn't fit in my schedule because of focus classes and engineering 101, what advice do you have?
We love focus. So first thing we do is encourage you to stay in focus. You'll be in small classes in a community. You'll have faculty you'll get to know. just take chemistry the next semester. I'm sure you're getting similar advice from Pratt since they recommend chemistry in the fall. So don't sweat it. This is a great example of where you're going to do your own thing. It's a little bit different from what other people are doing, but there's no right or wrong. Just stay the course and enjoy your focus in the fall.
If a student is taking focus, does it feel like manageable or balanced to do focus classes with Chem 101 and Bio 201?
I think that feels manageable, but also kind of like a lot. I think I would encourage the thought about bio. Are there other courses that you could take that align with your course load a little bit differently? Um, Having a strong foundation, I think might depend on what your chem course is going to be in and how you feel overall about that. So I wouldn't say there's a yes or a no. I would say that most students are going to partner focus in chem with something slightly different. P, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I
No.
agree.
Okay.
Similar question with focus, Chem, and Psych 101.
Yeah, so I think that's a little bit different from taking a biology with lab. I do want to say to all my pre-health friends, we encourage you to treat Psych 101 like it's got an imaginary lab course. This is a real deal course. The professor is going to give you a robust experience with psychology. She is going to have you writing a research proposal by the end of the semester, which is awesome because it teaches you how to do inquiry and really discover, think about how would you discover knowledge. It's a great experience, but it's one that, you don't want to tuck it in with, 2 other lab courses in your first semester. So what I like about this is we've got a natural science and a social science. So they're going to be a little bit different, but my guess is this is kind of like the chem class where you're going to be doing tests on content. And so they're not going to be that different from each other, but probably a little bit better than, say, bio with a lab and chem.
Great. Sticking on the theme of a course load, do you recommend taking intro bio and intro chem in the same semester? Let's say focus is not on the table. Is it the same answer?
I think that many students are going to start to look at chem and math. And so adding the bio, that would be that third lab that we would maybe not think about doing. I think if there are other combinations, bio may be on the table as an option. But again, I would really pay attention to the overall course load, the exploration, the lab component of bio. And I think it would depend a little bit. It depends. You're going to hear it a lot from us. Would depend a little bit on the other things that are alongside that. And maybe a little bit a student's experience with chemistry and biology coming in the door at Duke as well.
Can Calc 1 be replaced with statistics? I think that's asking about the requirement.
Yeah, so we would generally recommend students take a Calculus 1 and an introductory statistics class. The many schools require a year of college math, and so that calculus and statistics pairing can be really helpful. Although it's not required, it's recommended that you take calculus before you take physics at Duke. And I'm also very cautious about students taking statistics in their first semester. The reason is not all majors will take all statistics. We see enough students come in thinking they're going to major in something and then change their mind either for positive or negative reasons in early classes they take. And so it's safer to postpone your statistics unless you think you want to be a statistical science major. It's safer to probably postpone that class until later. Otherwise, you might find yourself in a situation where you've got to repeat a Duke introductory stats class, which just is not, it's going to be both a mixture of boredom and enough work that you won't be really happy with yourself or the department if you have to do that. So postpone until you know more.
You mentioned calculus being required for med school. So what if, or for some med schools, what if a student has AP credit for Calculus 1? should they just not use that credit and plan to take the course here?
It depends. When we say it's our favorite catchphrase, we really mean it around here. So what we usually encourage students to do is to start by looking at their state schools. If they're pre-med, looking at your state medical schools, because those are the places that will give us a little bit of a guiding light. Some medical schools do accept AP credit, some do not. And I think calculus is one of those places where sometimes we have students who feel they'll take a calculus class for some state schools that they plan to apply to. And some students in the exact same situation may choose not to take calculus because their state school doesn't require it. So that is one that is very dependent on the student, more so than a best practice from our office or team.
And I just want to tag on to that you may want to use that Calculus 1 placement to take a higher level class. If you're in, certainly if you're in Pratt, you're going to need more math beyond Calculus 1, but really popular majors, economics, computer science, chemistry, those are all going to require calculus beyond Calculus 1. So you may be better off going into that higher level class. Med school, even if they won't take AP, will count that higher level math as a math class. And you will have freed up an elective that you would have lost if you took Calculus 1 plus higher level math.
I think you just answered the next question, but I'm still going to make sure. If you test out of calculus and take classes beyond it, is there another math class you can take? It sounds like take the next one and that will help you.
Yeah, and the next one is really going to vary what you need. Computer science likes linear algebra more than multivariable. So again, looking at the major trajectory you're in, a lot of med schools will have their math requirement written as a year of college math, where calculus or math of any type plus statistics usually will count, or want a semester of calculus plus a semester of statistics. So taking some kind of calculus plus statistics can be helpful, but it is worth checking into the school if you need linear algebra and don't need another calculus for a major. You may find medical schools or schools that will accept that class instead. So sorry, it's another it depends answer.
It's good. It's good for people to hear and understand those nuances, including it depends. There's a question about AP credit, but not for calc this time, for chemistry. Would it be sort of the same answer if they have AP chemistry credit? Yeah.
It is similar, but I actually think chemistry is a little bit easier because I know you need more chemistry than what you're coming in with. So no student is going to come in with enough AP chemistry to have the question, do I not take chemistry at all, or do I just need an upper level? We definitely know you'll need an upper level. So the chemistry placement guide is great. It tells you which chemistry to start with based on your experience. So everyone will be taking organic. There's no way to place out of organic. And so the question becomes, depending on where you start with chemistry, you may or may not pick up Chem 210 on the back end. We encourage students, because organic is a 2-semester, that's going to give us a full year of you being here to sort of figure out where Chem 210 goes for you to be successful and if you're going to take it. So if you have AP chemistry, use the placement guide to select where you should be, and that will get us started. And that's probably the most important thing to walk away with today for fall 2025 is just use chem placement, and then we'll figure out as you go along how much and where the chemistry comes next.
Great. 2 questions that build right off of that. The first is, do you suggest taking organic chemistry first semester?
If the placement supports it, we'd say go for it. I think one of the things sometimes when students place into lower level classes than what placement suggests, they think it's going to be a really easy class. Even if you've seen it before and did well on the AP exam, PhDs in chemistry will write much harder tests than either AP did or your high school teacher. So if you go in thinking, I'll skate by and have an easy semester, you may be in for a rude awakening. So you're better off pushing yourself, taking class that placement suggests, We have occasionally students who take organic chemistry that on the back end need to take Chem 210 to meet school requirements, but they've still freed up at least one elective, and maybe if they don't have to take 210, they'll free up two electives. And those electives can be really valuable. Global health is a really popular co-major, but it's a obligate second major. And so by freeing up electives, you've now got more room to consider doing something like that. And that's just one example of a place where having electives can be really helpful. So between getting you in a place where you're going to be challenged and grow and freeing up electives, we really recommend that you follow placement advice.
Great. There's so many good questions here. I lost the other question related I was going to ask, but we'll just dive in to some other ones. Pratt student, but this probably could be the case for anyone. Is it okay to start with biology in the fall? Just biology in the fall, and think about chemistry, think about something else for the spring.
I think it can be. I think that chemistry is the longer sequence. And so when somebody says this or chemistry, our default is always going to be chemistry, just by nature has more courses that you're likely going to need to take. And so starting to see how many chem courses do you need to take would be my first sort of question to the answer, I guess. So if you need more chemistry, chemistry is going to be the better place to start so that we can keep progressing. If there's a conflict in your schedule, or if for some reason you have less chemistry to take and biology works better in your schedule, I think it can be a different choice that you could make. But chemistry, again, it's a longer sequence, so it's just the easier place to start.
I'm sure we'll come back to very specific questions about classes, but here's a big picture question. Is there a particular major that aligns best with pre-med requirements?
I love this question. It's got a clear-cut answer. No. um, what I will say is some of the natural science majors overlap a lot with the prerequisites. We've got biology, evolutionary anthropology, neuroscience, chemistry, Pratt to a good degree, all will overlap really well. But there's a couple philosophies you can take. You can take one where you maximize the overlap between the requirements in your major, just because you're there, you just need a few more classes. However, that's going to mean more science classes, 3 science courses a semester, sometimes 4. And so another way to approach it is to take something completely different, a social science or humanities major. So you wind up with these really nice balanced schedules every semester. You're using your brain to take tests and solve problems, but then you're getting to do other types of things like write papers, engage in discussions. It's just a way to diversify the kinds of courses. So there's probably not a right or wrong for the pre-health population as a whole. Schools will tell you that's one of the clearest cut answers you can get. No, that it really isn't. But there's probably a better option for you. So take some science classes that overlap with pre-health early on, sample something in majors that help you to confirm or move you away from that. If you want to explore other things, it's a great way to balance your schedules and help you figure out if that's a good department for you. So really invest on the front end if it's not clear cut to you, so that you feel really good about where you're going to take those advanced courses and build mentoring relationships with faculty and maybe do research later on, because you will have a much more robust experience. You'll have a better narrative about what you did and what you got out of it. And we can make anything kind of fit the professional pre-health career narrative. So that's not the problem. It's you making good decisions for you. That's the real challenge here.
Sorry, Zoom difficulties. If a student has placed out of the first chem and calc, would you advise not taking pre-health classes in the first semester so that they can explore other options and courses?
I mean, Dean Pers and I, both our eyes just lit up at that idea. Yes. I think if that sounds really exciting to a student, that sounds very exciting to us. Like we said, schools really want to know that you're interested, that you like to grow and explore. And if you have that flexibility, because those courses have AP credit and you can place into and you can use those early experiences academically to explore other things that are interesting to you, please do that. Yes, please.
It's kind of like a buy in a tournament. You get to rest while everybody else is wearing them out. And so it's a privileged place to be, and one that we would encourage you to consider taking advantage of.
I'm looking for some advice here. There's a few questions that people are starting to get into, like, these are all of my courses, and I'm trying to figure out one more as a balance. I'm going to go out on a limb. Would that be a good thing for people to come to the sessions in the coming few days? Like, if you want to talk about this, I'm trying to figure out the balance between these things and pre-health requirements. Great. Okay, so anyone who submitted, these are my 3 classes I'm committed to because of focus or constellations, and you're looking for one more, that might be a really good thing to come to the drop-in. And I'm comfortable saying that also because we are running out of time. I can ask a few more questions, but I just want to start to name to folks. There's a lot of questions here and they're really great, and we're not going to be able to get to every single one. So I just want to name that. Okay, here's someone who thinks they want to be a neuroscience major. When do they start taking classes related to the major, especially if they're also pre-health? And how do they figure out that balance of, like, how many classes for your major in a semester versus pre-health requirements?
I think for me, the getting in and taking a neuroscience class early, so it confirms that that's the right thing for you, should take priority over pre-health classes. Like if you've got to bump something, bump a pre-health class. The other thing I'll point out with neuroscience, because it is a natural science major and has co-requisites that overlap really well with pre-health, you're meeting requirements for both, just by meeting those co-recs for the major. So co-recs are things like calculus and physics and chemistry and bio and things like that. But I think you got to get into neuroscience and get the information about, is this the right field for me, early on, so that you know whether you want to continue taking classes in that area.
There's at least a few questions related to this, but I'm gonna ask, one of them says, are these introductory courses for pre-health requirements, are they competitive to get into? And then what if someone doesn't get in during course registration? What advice do you have?
I think if you don't get in, take a deep breath. There are lots of options. We've already highlighted lots of different places that you could start, lots of different options of what order to take things in. And so while I think there might be, sometimes we hear students saying, well, I really don't want to take a class at 8 a.m., like that might be your option. I wouldn't say that we have a lot of students who feel like they can't get into at least 1 or 2 of the pre-health courses that they need and are interested in into the fall. But if that were to happen, you had a conflict or you weren't able to find a lab that works, it's going to be okay. We'll just figure out what makes sense for this semester. And if that's not a pre-health course, that's okay too. I like to remind people we're in this together. So our job is to know if something goes sideways, like what are your options and what things can you do instead so that you can choose. And I think we've talked a lot about math and chemistry, and biology would be good starting points, but so would be psychology. If you're interested in it as a major or not, it's also a pre-med prereq. And so that's a really easy second course. Or we didn't really touch a lot on sociology, but sociology is another course if you couldn't get into chemistry or math for some reason, that you could get a flavor of pre-health in a slightly different way. So I like to take a deep breath. It'll be okay if we can't get into it. We have lots of options and time for making choices down the line.
I want to add a couple things that we haven't said. I think it's one of the reasons why we don't promote biology heavily, in addition to chemistry as the longer sequence, bio 201 molecular biology. Well, it's not a prerequisite. It's heavily dependent on chemistry to understand it. And there just aren't a ton of seats in bio 201 and 202 right now, that if you wanted to start there, you probably need a backup going into registration. The other thing I want to underscore is Chem 99 and 110 are only offered in the fall. So if you place into one of those, I think I would prioritize those a little bit harder than some of the other classes we've talked about. Math, read their website. They want you to get on a wait list to let them know you're interested in the class. Chemistry historically has made space. So, come to us. We know some of these things, or contact the departments and see what they do. But with math, I always advise reading their website thoroughly before it instructs you who to contact when. And so I just want you guys to get it right if you're going to contact math.
How does taking or not taking a gap year before medical school change course planning?
It gives you some wiggle room, but it doesn't give you all the wiggle room in the world. So we really see taking a gap year as a tool. If you are breaking your neck, planning on cramming in MCAT prep, and you are stressed going into your junior year, your pre-health advisor is going to do, and as Morhack said, and say, take a breath. What happens if we take a gap year? That lets you push some classes into the next semester, maybe take the MCAT at a more optimal time. Only 11% of our last class that applied straight through. So taking gap years is the new normal. So we will talk about that with folks as we get deeper into advising.
All right, the final question I'm going to ask you is, someone says, I've heard that medical schools dislike when students take summer courses. How credible is that claim?
Oh, I love the back half of that question. How credible is that claim? Let's start applying that to everything we hear, pre-health friends. So I think that there is some level of truth in that and a lot of not truth in that. So what I mean by that is medical schools want to see that the majority of your coursework is done in a full academic setting in the fall or the spring. But there are a lot of really good reasons that a student would take a summer course. Taking a summer course to stay in sequence, to be able to go abroad, is going to be a wonderful choice that we see a lot of folks choose because it gives them a different intellectual and academic opportunity that they might not be able to have if they don't take summer coursework. So the overarching kind of response is that the majority of your prereqs should be in a semester so that you can demonstrate to medical schools and other health profession schools that you can do the rigor of the science in a full course load. But if we're taking courses 1 or 2 in a summer to do something different or because something externally is impacting our decision making, then we're going to do those things. Global pandemic a few years ago meant that some more students took summer courses because it was a better option for them at that point. So there are a lot of reasons that might be an okay choice. But again, just the majority of it we want to see in an academic year.
Before I close this out, is there anything you want to leave our students with?
If Brittany, you'll go back a slide, I'll just remind everybody, register with us, use the drop-ins for the next 5 business days. We know we didn't get to all the questions and we're happy to continue to take those. So really excited to have all y'all here, and thanks for coming today or watching the recording. We'll put the recording link up on our website if you need to come back and watch it again.
Wonderful. I want to say a huge thank you to both of you. Thank you to all of our students for tuning in today. I will remind you that there are 2 summer transition series left. Our next one is next week, July 29th at 4 p.m. We do require that all students watch it live or watch the recording as we cover some really important details and policies from Housing and Residence Life and the Office of Student Conduct and Community Standards. So that will air July 29th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you all again and have a great evening. Bye-bye.